If you combine visuals with spoken word, then the outcomes for the students are better. But what we don't cover is visual images that move. So movies, animation, and the like. And we don't cover how emotion is involved with remembering, especially when it comes to using video or visual images, moving images, within your training. So in this video, what we're going to cover is not only the use of video and other moving images like animation, but how we use it. In what sort of context should we use it to get the best outcomes for our students? We're also going to look at emotional images and emotional video. How do we use that to actually get what we need for the student? So without any further ado, let's have a look. So a quick recap on the PEN principles themselves. Firstly, visual images and spoken word do mix well. Under psychology, the auditory threshold is unaffected whilst you're viewing images, so that means they don't complicate each other. Under education, visual images used to support oral content have improved performance and retention in many studies. And neurologically speaking, as the neural regions do not interfere with each other, the addition of visual images to an oral presentation actually boosts the brain's performance by activating what they call sensory integration areas. So that leads us to these questions. Do moving images increase retention and performance? And can emotive images or video impact the outcomes? Research into 17 studies on the subject found that multimedia learning significantly improved the outcomes over traditional methods of learning. Another study also found that using animation is a really great way to introduce people to new subjects. They found that people with existing knowledge on the subjects didn't have a significant increase. And finally, if you're considering using some of the really cool new tools like virtual reality, a recent study out of Bond University found that using Multiuser VR had a significant improvement on the overall feeling of the quality and engagement of the experience versus just what they call single user engagement or single user virtual reality. So just one for those of you who may be looking at that as a means to increasing your interaction using moving images. So have a look at this particular animation. This is titled, "There are 9 types of intelligence." By adding the audio voiceover, the engagement improves up to 40%, and as we know, the better the engagement, the better the retention.
Dangerous railroad tracks. But there is strong opposition from some citizens who don't like change. Despite the demonstrations, the council agrees to go ahead and then hires a team of 9 experts from Smarts & Co. to get the job done.
So where can you use movement? Connie Malamad, the author of Visual Design Solutions and creator of the e-learning coach, recommends the following. Firstly, you can use it to demonstrate parts or components. So just imagine where you can use this to describe some of the things that you're teaching. How about to visualize abstract concepts? In this case, I've used a bit of a drawing technique within Microsoft PowerPoint to help visualize this particular phrase that we live in deeds, the things we do when we're younger, as opposed to the years that we live concentrating on just retaining our money as we get old. We can also use it to trace motion paths. We can also use it to present statistics. And finally, we can use it to envision metaphors. In this case, for this whole year, this room has become my prison. The moving images grab the eye, and your students can use references within their own experience to make sense of the particular metaphor in this case. So to summarize, on the right-hand side, we've got a QR code for you that takes you to a video called PowerPoint for Teachers. That'll teach you some of the techniques I just used in that series of animations and videos. So we can use it to demonstrate parts and components if we're talking about something that has a lot of detail. We can use it to visualize abstract topics, to trace motion and paths, to present statistics, and finally envision metaphors. So according to a 2017 study, emotion has a substantial influence on the cognitive processes in humans, including perception, attention, learning, memory, reasoning, and problem solving. However, the effects of emotion on learning and memory are not always univalent, as studies have reported that emotion either enhances or impairs learning and long-term memory, depending on a range of factors such as the interpretation, the level of emotional well-being of the student, sight issues, context of the image as part of the greater story, and so on. We must not just think that emotion equals better memory. Therefore, here you go, now, feel something. We must start with what we want our students to feel and why. So here's a simple guide for using emotional images. Firstly, what do I want my students to feel? How would this benefit them? What image best portrays the emotion in the context of my lesson? And what story or narrative can I use to build with the image? So how about this? If I wanted to create a coffee experience, which of these 6 images or videos appeals most to you? What would stand out to you? What's your interpretation, in other words? The moving images have more power. However, a single image can also have quite an impact. But as we're talking about moving images here, just think about number 2 and 5 there and how that might relate to that experience that we're trying to create. In other words, a coffee experience in this case. Where can you use emotive images? You probably noticed that your own feelings about coffee and how you do or don't enjoy it played a big part in the emotions raised within you. This is the difficulty facing teachers trying to choose the appropriate and best images to ignite that emotional encoding in their learners, while ensuring it doesn't backfire and produce a negative effect. Our advice is to only use emotive images when you can be almost certain of the interpretation, such as this one, this, or even this. So in summary, don't use emotive images just for the heck of it. It can backfire. Only use them when you've reflected on what and why, and ensure the message is likely to be interpreted the way you desire. So here I have a whole bunch of resources that I've used not only to create this particular presentation, but also some of the videos that I've created along the way, including some of the animation at the start. So remember that moving images improve the outcome, but you've got to be very careful where and why you're using them. Same with emotive images. They can backfire if your emotional image or video can be interpreted negatively by your audience.